So I've had this happen to me a few dozen times over the last 6 or 7 years of this social experiment that I seem to be on, where I feel like I've taken steps, and every one of those steps that I've taken as I'm climbing the ladder has been shocking to me personally, and I don't understand it. For example, when you delegate something to somebody that you've been doing for years, there's a sense of like, man, now what am I going to do? How am I going to fill that gap if I gave up, like when I gave up editing videos to Bryce when I first hired him, like, well, what am I going to do now? And naturally that time got filled with some other new responsibility that is part of the evolution of owning a business and creating a brand and making the transition, or the upward transition, as my coach Rick says, when you make that transition from being a company to an organization. You know, you start out as a guy in a garage doing stuff and doing everything where we have a job and it's kind of a side hustle, and then it turns into a full-fledged, living organism, if you will, with lots of humans working together to create magic. And I'm in another one of those, hopefully upward trajectory moments, and I was feeling like I needed a little bit of inspiration. And so I booked two things. I booked a flight, and I booked a couple of places to go. One was to go out and visit a company that I admire, which is the video you're going to see, and the other was to go out to the CEDIA show, which is the sort of integrators version, the custom install version of a consumer electronics show. And I feel so fortunate because I came out of both of those with some real, I don't know about clarity, but with some real inspiration. Garage people, the people watching this, we're all engineers and that type, so we like the technical stuff. Okay. So the stuff that's most interesting to me is the product, the detail of the product and how the machines work and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So that's what people, that's what I'm really interested in, that's what the other people are interested in, that kind of stuff. As much as you can show of that, okay, is what people I think are most interested in, how the product's made. And to me, the Waterstone is a passions-driven company, right? So they're passionate about the product. You don't happen to be in the commodity business of making faucets. You're in the passion business of making great products. Right. So that's 100%. What the products that I'm always looking for.
Functional art.
Yep. Like my tagline is the pursuit of functional excellence. Yeah. We're pursuing excellent products.
Beautiful. Well, you're in the right place.
And that's our number one core value right there, passion for excellence.
Toured dozens of factories, dozens of other distribution type facilities over the 10 years or so I've been flying around the country looking and chasing products. I'm pretty sure this was the first company. They didn't clean up for me. Like, they didn't go on a wild cleaning spree. They didn't apologize when there was a rack that was in the way. We just moved it out of the way. They weren't embarrassed by progress, by production, by things that you could clearly see that again, maybe something was on the left side and it's normally on the right side. There was no fear of what people might see on the camera. There was nothing there that they said I couldn't film, so they weren't fearful of what they're creating. They weren't fearful of people stealing it. They were very confident in their process. And that I've never experienced in any company I've ever gone to, other than maybe my own, where, come on in, open the drawers, look in my sock drawer if you want. I got nothing to hide. And there was I think that can only come from the entire census, the employee census was bought in. They're making amazing things that would be almost impossible to replicate.
Some of the things that we do too is that everybody on the floor we're fully transparent. We don't hide anything from anybody. Everybody on the floor knows what sales were yesterday. Everybody knows what we shipped yesterday. There's screens and there's TVs all over the facility in the cafeteria. They have iPads, not information on the iPad there, the workstation. It's not on right now, it's circulating through the system, but so everybody has got visibility, right? Nobody can, you should be able to walk around the facility and say, how much did we ship yesterday? People should say X, right? Because they have it accessible to them. That way they're not in the blind, right? They're not just working. We don't want people that way. We want people to love what they do, love what they make, but also be part of our success, right? That's what our goal is. So everybody knows what the goal is: daily, weekly, quarterly, and everybody has an incentive associated with that. You know, the culture, we talk about sales, where we're heading, his vision. That way everybody knows where we're heading, right? And so being part of telling everybody, not being so secretive. There's a lot of companies, I work for companies like that, right? It's like, well, what is the goal? Like, oh, you just keep going, just keep going. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not fair to the people or whatever. So that's one of the really cool things about the culture that we try to cultivate here for everybody, because it's really good for people to know the vision and a target to hit, right? So that's part of it.
When I was sitting in the conference room, I noticed they had Cree lighting, they had Crestron control, they had a table that clearly was custom made and was well thought out. They had great chairs. They just are passionate.
That part's exciting for us. We like that. Yeah. That's a part that sucks me in. I love machinery, equipment, process. I've got so many wonderful people working for us here that have great ideas that are well beyond what we've got out on the floor, and I'm excited to see if we can implement that out there. There are other processes. I've been traveling overseas and seeing some of the processes overseas, because in a lot of ways, a lot of the manufacturing overseas is much more advanced than what we are here. And I'm looking at some of those processes and thinking, why can't I bring that back here? Why can't I integrate that into our floor? Why can't we gain that approach? And we will, and we are.
But without the passion and the interest, it would be a chore, and you probably wouldn't do it.
It wouldn't be fun.
Right. If you did it, it'd be like halfway. And that's what I've learned in my life. I was in, selling mutual funds to people, and I kind of liked it, but I didn't love it. And so, they say you work 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day. If you're doing what you love, it's like minutes.
Feel like it.
Right.
So does Chris come and say, I want to do this? And
Yes.
then you say, okay, now you got to figure it out.
Yeah, so we're our next venture is in with this box designed for valving behind the wall for shower valving.
Yeah.
And he's given us his first design like this.
Yeah.
He sketches it up, and we
Yeah,
then take it
that's freaking
and we make the products. We'll design it up. We'll print it out for him. Let him look at it. Give us more feedback. And I wanted it more like this.
So
or
he'll go
that.
sit in the chair, and the guys will start.
So that's and we do all that for the different faucets, and sometimes we present ideas to them, and
Sure,
so the Argonaut has round handles. With the current design, we're looking at lever handles, because some people like lever handles. What kind of style should that be? We'll give him 4 or 5 options to pick from. He'll either gravitate to one or another, or have his own ideas, things like that.
Just every detail about the place was thought of, but you could tell that place started much like we've started. It started in one corner and kind of grew and grew and grew to now the point to where they're trying to figure out, do we expand? Where do we go next? It was really, really neat to see. Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm in Murrieta, California at the Waterstone factory. And this is the Waterstone showroom they have here. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, this is their signature piece, the wheel. What do we call this now? Endeavor. It's called the Endeavor wheel, or the Endeavor, just Endeavor period, right? Single name, right? Anything with a single name means really good. But I wanted to show you kind of the concept, and to me, I've said this a bunch, but to me, my house is attached to my garage. Right? I enter through the garage, I exit through the garage. The garage is the statement piece of my house and many of your houses as well. But I still have a kitchen, I still have a sink. I use the sink 10 times a day. And so I value the sink. There's certain things I value, certain things I don't. I don't value a tub. right? I'm not getting in taking a tub, but I like a shower, like a great shower head. I like a great refrigerator, and I like and I've never had one, but I would love to have a great sink with an amazing faucet. And so the Endeavor, this is on a completely different level of craftsmanship. I want to say this thing weighs 25 pounds. You know, it's well over 20 pounds. But this is the sort of the claim to fame of how Waterstone got started with this piece here, and how they've created something unique in the marketplace. The thing I really love in talking with Chris, the founder and owner, is that he builds things that he would want personally, and then it's the same thesis as Obsessed Garage, is that like if he wants it, other people may. If I want it, other people probably will too. And so I resonate with that, the culture here, the passion they have for the construction of this product, and to see this thing is not cheap, but to see what goes into making this thing, having toured the factory here, it's incredible that somebody's willing to put in the effort to put a team together and to take the risk that this is a really expensive thing that not everybody's going to want, not everybody's going to understand, but I freaking get it. I understand it more than I can explain. This kind of stuff makes me smile. But I wanted to show you, this is a custom sink from what is it, Rochelle, Chris? So there's, I've been working with a company called Havens Metals in Orlando that makes custom sinks. But the concept here, this is a 36 by 20, I believe. The concept here of having a multifunction sink is that these sinks will have different tiers, so you have two different levels, and they make these in farmhouse versions and undermount versions and top mount versions. But you have your ability to slide, and you have two different tiers of things. You can put cutting boards in, you can put holders that hold like your sponges and stuff like that. You can do drying racks. So my vision long term would be to have a 72-inch sink with dual faucets. And then, of course, the cool thing about Waterstone is they do a really great job of creating functional accessories as well. This, I'm assuming, is the garbage disposal. So this is our pressure, our air switch, I should say. And then you have your soap dispenser. And what the heck is this?
That's a California special. That's an air gap. So that's a compliance only, I think, in California and Massachusetts, that allows air to basically come down into your system and breathe a little bit better.
Gotcha. Okay, so California's code is a little different. It has an air gap, so you want to make something that matches, so you don't have to have some ugly thing sitting on your countertop.
Yep. Unfortunately, we are forced to design something beautiful for that regulation.
So the wheel, the concept here, they've explained, as Chris will show this to you in more detail, but the concept is that the wheel allows you to take and pull out your hose, and that way I can cover my entire 36-inch or 42-inch, or if you had a 72, you could do two of them, so you can cover the entire width. But everything in this stuff, the thing that I love is the attention to detail on every part and piece. I was fortunate enough to go into the factory and hold like the caps, like this cap here, or these little end pieces. Everything is made out of basically a rod of brass, and then CNC machined on site here. And then everything's hand touched, hand finished. You have really almost an infinite amount of choice of what kind of finishes you can do. So matte black, classic bronze, which has a goldish finish. This is what we're doing in the LZ kitchen. And the other thing I wanted to see was you don't need a lot of room here, because I was a little concerned because we don't have a lot of room on the LZ project with with where the sink is.
That's actually what's exciting about that faucet, is you have up to 20 degrees of adjustment built into that. So if you do have a very close backsplash, you can still accommodate for that with that sink. Just like you can actually mount the handles front, left, or right. So if we're just looking at the Endeavor wheel, it's obviously a functional piece of art, but there's a lot of utility built into it as well. So as Matt and I were talking about a little bit before, is we actually have adjustability right here into the handle, so that if you have a very close backsplash, it's still able to accommodate it. You're also able to orient the handles either to the left, the right, or to center.
How do they do that? We just turn this piece and set it.
Yeah, so basically what it is all of your adjustments can be built right in here to the handle.
Okay.
You go in there, you take off the front part here, you tighten the screw, and it'll limit the amount of movement it actually has in here so that you can actuate the system to the extent that you really want to. Another great feature, which is a huge saver, is that the cartridge and everything that you would need from a plumbing perspective is above the counter.
Okay.
So no more climbing in under there, trying to switch something out. Makes it very, very easy to actually service and maintain this product.
So how would I do that? Do you take this cap off and then everything comes off?
Yeah,
or?
so basically right here, you unscrew that and this will lift out.
Oh, I got you.
And you're
Okay.
actually able to service the cartridge and everything else right in here. So it makes it very easy.
Which is going to be a rarity, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, no, and we had mentioned too, you know, we actually, we have a lifetime warranty for the functionality of all of our faucets. So we actually just got a couple that were mailed into us that were 20 years old that we just completely refurbished and sent back out to the customer. So that when we say it's a forever faucet, it really is.
yeah. This is a value prop. Like, this is a value piece. Do you value the the dishwashing experience or the sink using experience, and then do you value, or some people may value longevity? You know, this is a heirloom almost that you could hand down across generations if you wanted to.
Well, it's actually really funny. A lot of people, when they move, they take their faucet with them, go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and get a cheaper one and throw it in there and sell you that faucet.
Well, you would have to do that. I say this with cabinets in the garage all the time. Like, if you don't want the cabinets to stay with the house, you got to take them out before you show it.
Yep.
Because no one's going to let you take those with them.
Exactly.
You know, they're going to negotiate you to death. Say, look, I'm not buying the house unless I keep this. Anybody who saw this in your house would be like, I need that. I need to keep that.
Well, and you have to look at plumbing fixtures just the way you do with anything else. You know, do you want to pay for it on the front end or the back end? You know, do you want to replace it every 6 months? Do you want to buy a lesser quality piece just to get through, or do you want to buy once and be done? So it's a beautiful option.
So all solid. So this is made out of.
This is solid brass, actually, that we get solid bar stock from a plant
Yep.
in Ohio.
Okay.
So, and then we actually recycle all that excess material back to them. So when we say that we're 100% USA manufactured, we truly are. Even the material comes from the US.
So explain this, how the belt system or the system works for the hose retraction system.
So we wanted to design something that was actually going to be able to be very functional and also retract the hose back up into the system. So what we did was we added basically a seatbelt retractor spring, so that when you get that smooth kind of pull, it's going to be that smooth release back up into the system.
It doesn't. It's not like you're shoving it back in, or it doesn't whip it back.
Exactly. And we actually use two different trains of thoughts. So we have this system that has the built-in retractor, but then we also have like our positive locking system. But yeah, no, that's just a decorative cover, and that is solid brass, machined down. That's probably 2.5 pounds, maybe a pound and a half, somewhere right around there, just solid brass, just as a cover.
And all these accent pieces are all, are CNC'd out of a piece of. I saw them making this wheel down there and held that in my hand. I think it's 4 or 5 pounds.
See it right there is where the wheels are actually manufactured.
Yeah.
So
because it's a big hunk of brass, it's too darn heavy for them to pick up.
Exactly.
And so they got the robot arm to help keep people's bodies intact.
we always try to innovate and find new ways to better our processes. That's one thing that Chris does a great job at. Not only does he find the right people, but he implements the right policies and procedures to make sure that we are designing the best products in the world.
When I'm there and you see and you're walking around the warehouse, you could very clearly see they have, I don't know how many, I didn't count, 100 CNC and robotic type, really expensive equipment. And you could tell, and I talked to Chris, the owner, you could tell that each one of those machines was a love story. It's like, man, we got this one machine, and let's figure it out and let's use it. And then eventually that machine gets used all day, every day, and they need another one. Then you get another machine and you have to shop for it and acquire it and then figure it out and learn how to use it. And then that's expounded over the last 20 years across hundreds of different machines, down to the point to now where they have robot arms grabbing things and learning how to polish brass. And it was really, really cool to see I could envision the process or the step-by-step parts that went into this thing and how they put it all together, and how they're still trying to figure it out today, and how they weren't bashful about sharing where they've been and where they're at and where they're hoping to go. And I could just feel that. I could almost envision the 20 years ago, what it looked like, what it felt like, and what it felt like to get a new $100,000 piece of equipment that you're not sure you can pay for. And that happened over and over and over and over again. And then I started thinking about, this area I'm in Marietta, California, how there's hundreds, if not thousands, of other companies that have a similar story. The uniqueness about a company like Waterstone or an Obsessed Garage, I think, is the passion part, though. There's a passion for the product. There's a love for the product. There's a love for the thing that they're representing or the thing that they're creating. And that love is, supersedes money, supersedes success, supersedes everything. It's about a passion for creating something great and then being willing to look foolish while pursuing that. Coming out with something that's so uniquely different and so against the status quo, and for such a niche specific grouping of potential customers, it really inspired me. I came back here and I felt good about where we're at. I felt good about where we're headed. I felt not alone, that there are others out there too that are pursuing something similar. It was really cool to see.
Thanks so much for sharing with us the inner workings. That's what I'm so fascinated about, the passion behind the product, and then how do you build the culture in order to put something together.
Yeah.
And then of course the expertise and the time, and it's like, you guys probably look at this as so simple, but it's so, like, an outsider, like, so sophisticated, because every single day you're adding something new. Right, you're creating something new, and so if you do that for 20 years, it becomes this juggernaut of sophistication that, from your vantage point, probably seems really basic. Like, oh, this is how we do it. But like, each one of those machines, probably somebody took 100 hours to decide they're going to buy the darn machine, and then you get the machine, and then you got hundreds of hours figuring out the machine, and then you got to fix the machine, and there's 300 machines down there, and so just imagine this, the sophistication that it takes. And then the culture you have to build around it to make sure it works, right? And put it all together. Well, thanks for sharing and letting us inside of this, the mind of how this thing goes together. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, please.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate your time.